conversation about a podcast that I talked to you about, one of your podcasts, where you said that you actually started it over. You started it and you're like, let's try this again. Let's just start from scratch. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would, I don't think it would be sporting to say which podcast that was, but yeah, so I had a podcast that went completely into the ditch for the first half hour. I mean, just brutal. And I said, listen, there's a good conversation for us to have here. And now I know how badly this can go. All right. So like now I know just where the track is that I have to struggle to keep the train on. And so we're going to reboot, we're going to start again, and let's see what happens. And, you know, the podcast was not perfect, and I got some criticism for it, but people didn't understand that we were like, you know, I had seen the pit of alligators and didn't want to fall in, right? You know.
Well, it made more sense though when you told me that, because I'm like, okay, it was heated before you even got to go,
right?
Because you'd already gone through a half an hour of back and forth.
Yeah,
yeah. I think people need to understand what it's like to do one of these things too, because you know, you do it so often, it becomes pretty. I mean, you're so good at talking, you're such a good orator, and you're so articulate that it comes off smooth and easy. You're just having a conversation with someone, but you're always considering the fact that people are listening to this. You're always saying, how do I get more out of him or her? How do I take this and how do I get this person to expand upon this? How do I make this make something out of this? And this is one of the things that I felt with Jack, because he was talking in this way, and we're really working hard on fixing all these issues. I'm like, oh Jesus, I gotta change my gears here and try to figure out, because like it's almost like we'd have to restart again every time a question would be answered. He would stop talking, and I'd go, okay, next thing.
Took so long, you forgot what you asked. Yeah.
Well, it's almost like I have to restart the momentum of it, but.
Well, again, I'm that kind of a speaker, so you know, that wasn't a problem.
But I didn't know what he talked like. I'd never heard him talk ever.
Right.
So hearing him talk there and talking to him live, you know, I mean, some people are fucking effortless. Yeah. Some people, like Elon, took a while. Like we had to start drinking.
No, that was brutal. Yeah. But that, I mean, you know how much I tried to micromanage that behind the scenes, right? Like I was all in your grill, trying to figure that out. And you know, you guys basically broke all the rules I thought I laid down, and Elon did it, because Elon tweeted, "I'll be on Joe's podcast Thursday night at 9 o'clock, whatever." I was like, I go, okay, this is so. But you know, I mean, I didn't want you guys to go live.
Right.
I wanted you to both have a chance to say, "Wait a minute, is smoking a blunt really the thing we want to be doing here?" So, you know, you didn't take my advice, and it was what it was.
Well, we were drunk by the time the weed came out. That was what's interesting to me, is we were drinking from the beginning of the podcast. We started drinking whiskey. We both had 2 or 3 glasses of whiskey before the weed came out. Nobody cared the fact that the CEO of Tesla was drunk. Right. Like no one cared about that. I mean, he wasn't drunk, but he shouldn't have been driving.
I don't know if that was obvious. I don't know if they saw that you were drinking. It
was obvious
in the beginning.
We were pouring the whiskey.
Right.
I mean, it was on the table. We had ice. We were clinking glasses. Salute. I mean, it was very obvious.
Yeah. I mean, the problem for me there with that podcast, frankly, was that I feel like you both got unlucky with just where he was in his life at that moment. I mean, because what that podcast showcased, at least for the first, I don't know, 90 minutes, was just how many user interface problems you could have with Elon, right? Like he just showed up as kind of fairly weird, right? He's not always like that by any stretch. I mean, he can give a very loose interview, but you were working. I mean, it was just absolutely heroic work trying to keep that conversation happening, you know, in the beginning.
But once we got loose, that was good.
But it was still, it's like, you know, he was just in a space that he was so massively stressed and so overworked, and just, I mean, he had, you know, fires everywhere that had to be put out. And so I just felt, you know, as a friend, I just felt like, okay, this is sort of the wrong time to be doing this, and you know, and so I just felt, you know, it just felt unlucky to me. So because he's again, I you know, I see him in many other moments, and he can be. That was actually a circumstance where I was looking at the comments, right? You know, and I was saying, okay, these are people who are basically reading him as somebody who is much stranger than in fact he ever is, and I could see why they were doing that because he just seemed in a very stressed space in his life.
Well, it was interesting. He was very different when he first got here versus when the mic came on.
Right.
When he first got here, he pulls out the fucking blowtorch and starts shooting this flamethrower in the middle of the hallway, and we're laughing and having. I'm like, he's gonna be easy. This is great.
Right.
And then we sat down, and then stiff right off the bat, and I'm just trying to massage it and get him going.
Although